explain something to the business about how their system works, you have to be able to communicate and translate all the technology terms into something that they can understand. And I think that's where communication skills are very, very important. Also, when you're talking about teamwork, if you can't describe or relay a particular problem to another person in the team, you're not going to go very far. So yes, so that's verbal skills. You also need to be able to understand and listen what a customer says, and so to understand what their problem is. And then there's the whole thing about written communication, where it's very important that you can document what was agreed and document the requirements. So yes, I would say communication skills are very important.
Yeah, but sometimes when you meet in a teams, you got someone who is good in programming, but they're not good in documentation or communicating for further research. So how do you handle? Yeah. How do you
well, of course, you've got specialists in certain areas, and that is sometimes it's inevitable. But I can't see in my teams in an environment like this. This is not a laboratory. This is a commercial environment. I can't have someone in the team who can't communicate, who works all by himself or herself in solo. I can't see that happening. So, in my view, if I had someone like that on the team, I would try and either change what they do or put some controls around it, in the sense that they can only do part of the process and they have to hand over and document what is required. But someone who is just working solo, I can't see that. I can't see that happening.
So next, how would a system support manager interact with other IT professionals?
How?
Yeah, like.
Or because we usually just talk to one another and we email to one another and we send documents around. I'm not sure if that's what you mean, or do you mean
you got meeting? Like
we meet with them as well, face to face? Well, we have regular meetings with certain people. So from a system support perspective, I look after all of the production environments, all the systems that are running in our production environments. I have quite a few stakeholders in the business and in the other parts of IT. We've got a risk and compliance department, which basically tell us what we need to do to comply with regulations and legislation and company policy. So there's a frequent interaction with them, formally sort of like at least once a month, informally probably about once a week. I've got the project teams who are basically delivering either new systems and new products and building them on the systems, and they would go through a normal software development lifecycle, either rapid application development or waterfall, but they would do a design and do a specification and then do a build and do the test, and then when everything is signed off they would try and implement it to production. So I would be the recipient of that. So once they've completed, they would like to put it into production environment, so they have to convince me that what they've done is not going to break any of the systems. So for that we'd have weekly and sometimes even daily interactions.
So as the system support manager, it's more like managing all the department rather than like working, like see the details of each department, how it works.
Well, so that's where I sort of like I have to interact with other environments, but occasionally, of course, I want something from them as well, like other people to help me to resolve a problem, or you've got interactions with the business, and when it's non-IT related, so sort of like then it's outside of IT. I'm not sure if I answered your question there. Could you?
Yeah, that's like the system support manager as that job. It's more like what they're doing is like managing, just manage all of the what the department below you, or like more like.
Okay, so it's not my own department. Of course, I have to manage that as well. But when it comes to the organisation. I'm part of, you know, all other teams to make it happen. Our department is called Customer Solutions, and Customer Solutions is basically you've got administration people who use the systems and to do things. We've got call center staff, we've got people in finance, we've got people obviously in infrastructure, we've got people in development teams, we've got people in support like myself, and all of them we have to work together to deliver the best outcome to our customer, which are the advisors and the people who buy our products.
Yeah. Okay. Furthermore, what kind of difficulties do you get and future challenges in your project? What kind of how could you resolve if there is something difficulties in the future project? Will you get
in the future?
Yeah.
Well, application support or system support is very much a now type of thing. Things that we do now. Any future things that happen is basically comes out of either medium-term planning or project planning, and that's where we try to liaise as much as possible with people who are trying to initiate the projects or deliver the projects, and tell them what we want from our perspective. So I think the difficulty is probably at this point in time there's maybe because of the global financial crisis, there's lots of things happening and there's less people to do it. So there's pressure on everyone to work longer hours and do more work. And I think there's also, as a result of a rapidly changing environment, there's such a high volume of change. And change and system stability are pretty much incompatible in many ways. As a support manager, I would like no one to touch the system, because if no one touches it, I know it won't fall over, it won't have any problems. But obviously the business wants us to make changes, to put new products on, to put new features on, to put new things in place, and obviously there's lots of change, and change is sort of like causing outages to our systems.
Next, if you are still a student, after we graduate, what do you think are what kind of person do you think will be suitable for like taking IT job? So do you think like for the discipline thing and the skill for adaptation, is it more important than like their grade or something, or like what they have learned in their major?
Okay, you say if you're a student, I suppose after you've graduated you're no longer a student, you've graduated.
Okay,
so if you're looking for a job, obviously what I would be looking for is you need to have some sort of brain. You need to be able to, you know, to think and to be able to produce certain deliverables, and the study that you've done, your university study, would sort of like give me some sort of idea of that you've been able to do lots of work in a short period of time and to actually deliver something. So that's a first requisite, I suppose. Second of all, attitude. You have to work in the team, you have to be able to communicate, you've got to be able to talk to people, you've got to be able to look people in the eye. So those are very important skills, communications, being able to work in a team. But in terms of the subjects that you do or the grades that you got at school or at university, I suppose, they're important to a certain extent, but the environment in which we work, that it changes so rapidly that lots of the things that I learned at school are probably no longer relevant. It's also about continuous learning. You've got to be able to, you've got to have a willingness to learn new technologies and new things all the time. It's more about that. And that is if you want to move into a professional role, a professional being a developer or a tester or a business analyst. Once you move into sort of like more of a management role, you could do a number of things like project management, or if you want to manage people, you've got to show some capability of coaching other people, being able to get the best out of your team, show some leadership skills. So that becomes more important. Maybe not at the first instance after you graduate, but later on in your career, like say after a couple of years when you've figured out what you want to do when you grow up.
Okay, I think that's it for our interview.
That's good. Did I answer your questions correctly?
Yes, exactly.
Do I get a prize at the end?
Yeah.
You got something?
You get a